Welcome back on Inside Tennessee, and we welcome our guests back. Candidates for Commission District 2 in Knox County. One of them will be the next county commissioner from that district, Don BOSCH.
Folks, we've been talking quite a bit about COVID and the impact that it has on our community. And the one impact clearly it's going to have is monetary. We've had a significant decrease in revenues. We're going to continue to have a decrease in revenues. And I know that it's political suicide to talk about a property tax increase, so I won't even ask that question this show. But where do each of you see edges or ways to recoup money, to find money? And specifically, one of the things I'm thinking about is former County Mayor Tim Burchett was incredibly fiscally conservative, packed the rainy day fund for his entire tenure. Is that something you'd be willing to look at, getting into the rainy day fund, if we needed to adequately fund schools, health department, even law enforcement, who isn't taking as much of a cut maybe as some other areas? I'll start with you, Courtney.
Yeah, I know that we have already, there in the vote in June, there was an amendment added to dip into the rainy day fund to give the sheriff's officers a one-time raise. I don't know if this time was the time to do that. I mean, it's definitely called a rainy day fund, and yes, it is definitely raining right now. But how much do we dip into it to find funds? So we will need to be very creative. We can't just use it all. I've learned, I sat down with the finance director for the county and learned that, that's how we get our excellent bond rating. And so if we want to continue to have, to be able to receive those bonds on the status that we do right now, we need to keep that up to a certain amount. So yes, dipping into it could be an option, but I really want to go back through programs and see if we can cut a little here and cut a little there, much like you would do just your household budget. The budget's set based on what we think's going to come in. It doesn't necessarily mean the money's there. So we do have the opportunity right now where we can go back through and try to look at things and make sure we're not spending some excess here. And if we are, we can take that excess and move it to a different program. But it is going to take some creativity for sure to try to get us out of this shortfall from COVID.
Grant, your take
on it.
Sure. So I agree. I don't think it's a good time to dip too far into the rainy day fund, just because it does impact our bond rating and our interest rates. And we spend, I think, $70 million a year on our debt service. So in addition, we can't go into a lot more debt either. We've raised a lot of debt to pay for things over the years. I think the best way the first priority in terms of growing our revenue base is having good economic growth and having good investment. And for me, I'm running a very pro-urban campaign, and I see us grow. We're going to grow as a county. We're going to grow as a region. I want to see that growth take place from the inside out. So we need to grow our urban core, grow our major corridors, Broadway, North Central, Magnolia, even though it's not my district, Kingston Pike, Chapman Highway. There's a lot of opportunity for growth there. And it's a good way to grow the county's tax base without stretching our resources. So the infrastructure is already in place in the city. The schools aren't overcrowded. The services are provided by the city of Knoxville. So it's a good way to grow the county's tax base without stretching our resources. With all that said, we haven't had a property tax increase in, I think, 21 years since 99. 55-cent increase in 99. It's gone down. Our tax rate's gone down $1.20 since then. So that's a good thing, and that's because of economic growth. But we got to keep in mind we can't take on a whole lot more debt. And we also can't defer costs. We can't keep kicking the can. So that growth that's occurring, we've got to have infrastructure that keeps up with that growth. So at some point, I'd rather than, defer the cost or go into more debt, I would rather entertain a tax increase at that point than do those other things. I think obviously you look at cuts, you look at running a lean government. But I think, Ragsdale, Burchett, and Mayor Jacobs, I think have all presented pretty lean budgets. And again, there's a point of diminishing returns there. And again, we need to think of things as an investment, and that there's maybe a return on investment if we propose something like that. But at the end of the day, it's going to have to be sold. There's going to have to be a real good proposal. We got to make a good case for that if that time comes.
Grant and Courtney, we
so
only
John,
have about,
I think the trick is.
Go ahead.
The trick is don't ask the tax question and they answer it. So we've learned from this show. Thank you,
right.
Grant.
All right, Courtney and Grant, we've got to run. So Susan, your question is last, and just try to answer it in about 15 seconds if you could. Susan, go ahead.
I have a very quick question. One of the things being discussed in Knox County right now is an appointed or an elected law director. Charter Commission's looking at it. Are you for it or against it? For an elected, for or against?
Courtney?
Right now, I'm going to have to stick with elected. We have to make sure that there's a vetting process in place to make sure that we follow the proper steps, just like we would if it was a presidential appointment and Senate approving. So right now, I want to stick with it being elected.
All right, Grant?
It's hard to answer in 15 seconds, but generally I'm for appointed, just because I think an executive ought to be able to appoint his or her legal counsel. But we have to keep in mind, however the language is worded in a charter amendment, county commission, the attorney has to, county commission has to have an attorney, school board has to have an attorney, the sheriff has to have an attorney, the mayor has to have an attorney. So it's not just one appointed law director. Keep in mind, there'll be several appointed law directors. So I think the voters will decide. Generally, in the past, I see the value of having appointed law directors, but again, the voters will decide in November, hopefully.
Republican Grant Rosenberg and Democrat Courtney Durrett, thank you both. Best of luck to you, and we'll certainly be in touch. Don and Susan will stick with us for their talk around.